So my name is Ili Sulaiman. I am a TV host and celebrity cook. I'm also a food entrepreneur. You might have seen me on TV cooking shows like By the Sea with Ili, Dari Mangkuk Tingkat. I'm also an advocate for PCOS, and I am part of the co-founders of a nonprofit called Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome Support Association, Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. And my role is, so I'm a co-founder, so I work with my partners Dina and Stephanie on building the community, building a platform where we can share experiences. Also, we put people in touch with medical practitioners who understand, who know about PCOS. I was under a lot of pressure. So it was in my late 20s. I was starting up my career as a talent on TV. You know, I had just won Food Hero Asia at that time. I was shooting my first big TV show called By the Sea with Ili. So I was traveling a lot. At the same time as well, I was opening my first restaurant, which is also a social enterprise called Aga. What happened was when I was working really like crazy and I was super stressed out, I think I had a burnout. Emotionally, I was drained because, you know, I had less time with family and friends. Physically, I was exhausted because I was shooting and then running a restaurant. So I didn't sleep. I didn't eat properly. I think I was sleeping like 4 hours a day if I could, working 16 to 20 hours. It was insane. And mentally, I was exhausted, you know, running a business, being an entrepreneur, running a social enterprise. So what happened then was my period was late and I was due for a checkup with my gynae anyway. So I went to see, and then she asked me when was my last period and I couldn't remember. So she did a scan and she found all these cysts all over my uterus, and it was really not very clear as well because it was a topical scan, so it's an ultrasound. And she was like, okay, and then she's like, you put on quite a bit of weight. I was like, yeah, you know, and it's not like I'm not exercising, it's not that I'm not eating. I mean, I barely eat, you know. I was telling her I barely eat, so I don't understand why I can't shift this weight. I had a bit of hair loss, and she was like, okay, you're ticking a lot of the boxes of PCOS, but she said, never mind, let's do a blood test just to confirm. And true enough, my insulin was really high, borderline diabetic. So she was like, okay, you definitely have PCOS. And I was shook. I was like, what is this Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome? It sounds very big and very scary. And I really didn't know what to do. So the first thing I did was I got on my phone and I web searched Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, and I was overwhelmed by the information that was on it. So yeah, it was a very scary period in time, and I really didn't know anyone in my group of friends, family who had Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. I was also suffering from depression. It was really weird because I had to be this bubbly, loving self on TV while I was shooting, but I was crippling with depression. I didn't get out of bed some days. I just was like a zombie, you know. I was not happy. I was not cooking. You know, cooking's like my favorite thing in the world. Well, I stopped cooking for like 6 months. So I was very lucky that I got a doctor who understood other means of managing PCOS. But I couldn't like focus on PCOS, unfortunately, because I had my business and, you know, things were happening for me. So I kind of put it in the back burner. I just ate the ubat the doctor said. I didn't really listen to what she advised me on, like the diet and the working out and all that. I really didn't have time. It was only much later that I really started focusing on myself. It was quite hard because I was really struggling with so much at that time, you know, my work, my shoot, my life, my emotions, and then this was another thing that was kind of put on me. To be brutally honest, I just didn't want to deal with it. It was only much later on when things started to unravel. You know, I had to close the restaurant. I had more time, you know, I wasn't so busy with shooting. That's when I really took a step back, and then I was like, I need help. I need real help. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know anybody, right? I just knew my gynecologist, that was it. And then, you know, my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, who was there with me, he also had no idea. So I had a very small group of friends who understood. The rest of them who didn't understand, who didn't want to be friends with me anymore. So that was also heartbreaking because sometimes you lose people when you're sick, and family was supportive, but still they also don't know what to do, right? When I had a bit more time, that's when I was able to really process what is this PCOS. And to be honest with you, at this point also, because of all the stress, this is like maybe a year and a half after, I also started having a lot of pain in my body, and I didn't know what that pain was. So I decided to talk about it on my social media. And once I started talking about it on my social media, and I got all these messages and responses from my followers, some of them are like my childhood friends I haven't spoken to in years, and everyone's like, oh my God, I have PCOS too. And once I started talking about it and they were sharing their experience, I didn't feel alone anymore. And I felt like I could breathe. Like I had someone that I could talk to that could relate to what I was going through. So that was my process of the first step to healing, was that. But it took a long time. It didn't happen overnight for me. It took a long, long time. So obviously when I started talking about it, then I started to feel like I wasn't alone. And I had my girls, like I had these women that were like championing on, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of a community that really understands what you're going through. And that's when I got connected to Dina and Stephanie almost at the same time. Having Dr. Stephanie, one of our co-founders, in the medical field really helps, because she was the one who pushed me to go and see a second gynecologist who really works with hormone therapy, because like women who suffer from PCOS also sometimes suffer from thyroid problems and other hormonal issues or challenges. I was finally diagnosed with thyroid. I have thyroid deficiency as well as endometriosis. So all the pain that I was feeling every month in my cycle was actually, I had endometriosis, and I had no idea. I thought it was PCOS. I had my endometriosis removed back in 2020, and I was really on this path of like self-love and just being, I'm happy. I just want to be happy. I just want to be healthy. The biggest thing is actually your mental state, right? For me, because I had that emotional, physical, and mental breakdown when I was diagnosed with PCOS. So I'm very cautious about that. So when things overwhelm me, when people overwhelm me, when there's too much toxic stuff that happens with family members or friends or workplace, I remove myself. I set clear boundaries and I remove myself away from that, because I know that I can spiral very fast. So with PCOS, you have to understand what your triggers are. Some people it's food, some people it's stress, some people it's like a physical sakit, their body is in pain. So you really need to understand and listen to your body and see how your body reacts to certain things. So it really depends on the person. Every woman is different. So you really need to, this is the time where your body is telling you to look after itself. PCOS, I feel, is like an alarm clock. When you flare and it starts ringing, you have to listen. You really need to find that strength in you. And I feel like women with PCOS are very strong. We have an inner strength in us like no other. Women in general are strong. We can bear babies, we can have monthly periods, but women with PCOS, it's like a superpower. We're very strong. So we need to hone in on that and use it as a power.